Vanessa Mota.
That's me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I told you told me you were nervous. I told you I've been eagerly, waiting for a year and a half to interview you, just waiting for the right moment to ask Bianca, to ask you if it's okay if I reach out to you to be on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
Uh,
me. Perfect timing, really.
So I attended so why perfect timing?
There's a lot of things kind of coming to a head right now. Things that have been for a long time kind of brewing, and then
In your life?
in my life, yeah, professionally for sure. That's kind of coming to a head now, and all.
So it's,
It's I forget the word I'm looking for. Like they're all actually coming into fruition.
so what is coming into fruition? Let's see. Yeah, tell me where you are now, in your professional life, and then I'll bump you back to see how you got to this place.
Right now, I have a retreat under my belt. I hosted a retreat in Guatemala. I am teaching in my own space. So I rent a space hourly in Fort Lauderdale that is just mine. And it's through the city. So it's definitely like humble beginnings, but it's mine. And I dropped and announced my second retreat, but this one will be hosted by just me. My first retreat was co-hosted with a good friend of mine.
And is it yoga retreats?
Yep. So I did a yoga retreat in Guatemala. I have a yoga retreat that I just announced that's yoga and skiing. Fun.
Yoga and skiing
Yeah.
in Guatemala.
No.
Oh.
That one's gonna be in Keystone, Colorado.
Makes more sense.
Yes.
So tell me about that combination.
So
How you gonna split up the time, or is it doing yoga while on the
it's
skis?
literally doing yoga while going down the mountain. No. Warrior one all the way down.
So tell me.
It is
Do you ski?
I ski. So I didn't grow up skiing. I'm not like a skiing girly. Picked it up. I skied once 10 years ago. I loved it. I found it to be like a different type of paradise, a different type of relaxation. I always associated relaxation and meditation and vacation really to the tropics. Sand, ocean, beach. That to me was a vacation. I didn't really have any interest in going into the snow at all. And I went on a skiing group trip with friends, and I had the best time. I remember picking up skiing pretty quickly. I have a background in dance and just movement in general, so it came pretty easily to me. I didn't have a whole lot of fear back then either. And then fast forward, my boyfriend grew up skiing, so we started to go skiing together. And I had I was different, obviously, because 10 years had passed, so I definitely had a lot more fear. I had broke my wrist since then. I'm now in my 30s. I think I have a different respect for the body and for movement and adventure than I did then when I was like 21 years old.
Yeah.
But I found so many parallels between skiing and yoga. Like it just requires so much introspection, so much patience, so much self-reliance, and also on the physical side, like balance and coordination and activation of certain muscles and breath work, like everything. I just found so many parallels between skiing and yoga that I took to it the second time even more, obviously, because I've now gone like 6 times in the last 2 years or so. And I fell in love with it. And when I went to Keystone specifically, I walked into this resort and I just immediately, like literally the minute I walked in, I'm like, oh, I'm going to host a retreat here. Like I just felt it. Keystone is a really accessible mountain. It's only like an hour and a half away from the airport. The hotel is like so charming and cute. It's been there for so long. It's like an iconic hotel. It has a spa that's open till 10 p.m. And I'm always craving yoga when I'm on the mountain. Like I love to do yoga before, ski, and then do some yoga afterwards. So I figured let me give it to the people.
So cool. So cool. So you have your studio now, like you're doing your own classes.
It's a space that I rent hourly,
Yeah.
but technically, yes, it's mine.
So, but it's your thing,
My
right?
thing,
Because
mine.
before that,
Mine,
people
mine.
had to schedule through different studios, different
Yes.
companies to get to you.
Yes.
So I did one of your workshops, which was super interesting. I think the only workshop that I've done, for yoga, it's like spending, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours in
Yeah.
the studio there. I remember also, I think it was what's the yogi word for twisting?
Twisting.
Twisting.
Yeah.
Is it twisting? So was it a twisting? Was it a twisting workshop?
Twisting and binding, right? I
Binding,
think we're
binding,
binding
binding,
as
binding.
well,
That
which
was
is
the
when
word.
you're like,
Yes, 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 yes.
trying to grab your hands behind your thigh or
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very helpful to me. Like it really was, because I've done, many different yoga classes, 45 minutes, 1 hour, 75 minutes, but never like a 2 or 3 hour workshop. So just focusing and spending time, I think, was helpful. And also I remember in yoga, you really never have the time to
ask.
ask, and also but take 10 minutes just to work on this one movement over and over again. It's
Yes.
always very quick and a few breaths and you move on. So that was very helpful. And you are good. You are good at. I'm not going to judge your yoga skills, but you're definitely you grab everyone's attention in the room, and I feel like people want to learn from you, and you do make it fun and unique. That's really ever since that day, I did really want to interview you. So don't be nervous. Thank you for being here again.
So nervous.
Again. So where did your yoga journey begin?
My yoga journey began when I was 8 years old. My mom took me to a Kundalini yoga class.
Ooh.
And Kundalini is very kumbaya, let's call it. It's very spiritually based. You wear all white. At least at the studio that I went to, you wear all white. It's very spiritual, a lot of breath work.
Was that in Florida?
It was in Florida, yeah, in Coral Springs where I grew up. And it was called Yoga Source, actually. And I would love to go back there now. I would love it. But yeah, my mom has always been a spiritual, free-spirited, incredible being. And she really always instilled in me to kind of be open to movement and breath and spirituality in general. So 8 years old, I went to my first Kundalini class, and I remember being like so taken aback by kind of the energy in the room. And I remember like just being 8 years old and just being humbled by like how serious it felt, but liking that. I liked the restraint that I had to kind of practice in order to be in a room with adults. I was the only 8-year-old in there. And so that's kind of like that's one of those core memories in my life. I just remember that class. I remember someone farted and I was like giggling and my mom was like, it's okay. And I was like, this is crazy. And we went back regularly though. I loved it. And I was good at it because I was a dancer. I've been practicing ballet since I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
So any physical aspect, any sort of like stretching or flexibility that I could do, I was like, look at me. So I loved that. I loved that I was good at it. And
I'll stop you on Kundalini.
Yeah.
When I started my yoga journey, which started at not 8, but I think maybe 3 years ago,
Yeah.
is when I really decided, okay, I'm gonna go to a yoga studio a couple times a week at the minimum, and then I wanted to sign up for a yoga class, and there were all these different options of yoga, which I wasn't really aware of. So now there's another barrier or layer of complication before I can begin my official yoga journey. So I decided for the first 2 weeks, I'll just try all of them.
love that.
So I think one of the first ones I tried was Kundalini.
Really?
I'd have no preconceived notions. I knew nothing about it. I did not look it up on YouTube, nothing. And it started off regular, like I would assume a yoga class would start. And then the instructor told us to close our eyes and start dancing.
Really?
Don't leave your mat, but let loose and be free.
That's beautiful.
Which is, I can see the beauty in it, but it's
Jarring.
It still
Extremely.
is. And it got, for me at least, more jarring from there, because then we were permitted to leave the mat and you were supposed to roam around the room. So it was a bit much for me. But what I
You roamed out the door.
Yeah, I know, and it's the worst in those moments when when the instructor calls you out and tells you, be free.
Oh yeah.
Be free, which was it's like telling someone to relax when they're stressed, And then but what I do remember positively from that Kundalini is
Not much.
not much, but one thing what I do impactful in my yoga journey was we did an exercise which was sitting on I sat on a block, but just sitting cross-legged or in in the lotus pose or half lotus, and our arms were stretched all the way in parallel, kind of like a warrior two
Yeah.
position with the arms. And we just did circles moving forward, but for like 9 minutes.
Ooh.
So she guided us, the instructor, through this, and she said the first minute will be kind of easy, and the second minute you'll start, eliminating all unnecessary thoughts. Third minute, only the most relevant thoughts in your life will remain in your head.
Wow.
Fourth minute, you'll kind of just lose yourself. Fifth minute, you'll want to quit. Sixth minute, everyone will have their own journey.
Wow.
So
you remember it so clearly.
it's, I'm paraphrasing. It was
Yeah, but
something along
still,
those lines. But she
yeah.
was guiding us. No, because
Wow.
I remember, what eats me in these things is when all my memories of, working out, sports, all these things are the moments I wanted to quit, never leave me. So I remember sitting in the Kundalini class and, doing these circles with my arms, my shoulders burning, my back burning, my neck burning, and really wanting to quit. And everyone else around me is just with their eyes. I peeked an eye open to see what everyone else is doing. And closing the eyes was an important part of it. But I do remember once I got past that, wall of wanting to quit, I was in some euphoric, state, which was kind of unbelievable. And that was very early on in my little yoga journey. And it did have an impact on me because I've never reached a place like that just, and I say just in quotes, but just from sitting and
Right.
doing circles with my arms.
Right.
So that's my experience with Kundalini.
I love that.
But yeah, so you had that, first exposure, but you're always looking for opportunities to move.
Yes.
And you were in dancing.
Yes.
Competitive?
Competitively, yeah. I danced ballet since I was 2, and then I started dancing competitively when I was 12, and I did that through high school.
What do you, like now looking back at the competition aspect of ballet and dancing, what do you think of that?
It just instilled so much value in community for me. That was like the biggest takeaway for me. To be honest, our studio was really good, so I didn't really have to learn about losing, which I wish I did. We won quite a bit, which was amazing, and it's really fun when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest takeaway that I took from competitive dance was just the community that we built and that support system that you have by sharing. There's something in just sharing time with people, but there's another aspect that deepens the connection to community by sharing movement, like collective movement, collective struggle, really, and collective strength in community. I think it creates a sense of stability and safety in a child and in an adult, and I think that it's something that we're always craving, is this sense of community. And the quickest way, in my opinion, to feeling a part of something is moving together in a group, breathing together in a group, holding your arms together in a group. It's like that struggle.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah.
it wasn't really like individualistic, competitive, crazy parents, kids stepping on each other.
No.
So it was like but you are competing.
They're some of my best friends to this day.
Well, but you were like also competing as a group.
As a group. So there's solos, duos, trios, small groups, large groups, and then I forget. Oh my God, I'm too old. I forget what the production is, like the whole company.
Okay.
Solos, you know what? Nowadays, solos are like and all anyone cares about these days within competitive dance, because of like TikTok and the idea of like having your big break and being, TikTok famous in one day. Not to be like a millennial and hate on TikTok, but say it ruined dance. But really, like people of my generation, solos are now like all the kids care about, and there are crazier parents now, and there is not much community, and it is like competition within the group of kids, which was never ever a thing. Our favorite dances were the ones that we had together. But yeah, for sure, now the dance world is much more individualized, just because of the idea of having like that big break, and that's not really a transferable skill into the arts. You can't really just because you're good at your solo doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get a job on Broadway. Because if you can't learn to dance with a group, function within a group, if you can't, be a part of a community, you can't really get a job unless you do become that TikTok star that you want to be so bad. It's not really a transferable skill. So it's actually a huge issue in the competitive world right now of dance.
What was your dream when you were competing and, living that experience? Was it Broadway?
No.
Type thing?
No. I have a deep respect for Broadway and I love musical theater, but I back then, I don't know. I don't think I really had an idea of where I wanted it to take me. I loved the way I felt on stage. And I would be in the studio and I would like always forget one part of the dance, let's say, or I'd always screw something up. And then on stage, I'd always be able to perform to the best of my abilities. And I recognized that strength in myself really young. Like people would be so nervous to go on stage and they would like fuck up like a really easy part of the dance, super which super unexpectedly. They were like the best in the studio, and then they'd get on stage and everything would go to the wayside. And I felt like when I had an audience, when I was on stage, I performed at like the most upper echelon of my abilities when I had that audience. So it's actually interesting that you bring that up. I'm like, oh, maybe that's why now.
Yeah.
Now I've my career is what it is.
Yes. So do you feel that same feeling
Yes.
when you're teaching because
Yes.
you are on stage to
Yes.
some degree? Also, like people that are listening to this, probably maybe some have. Bianca has, but some have. Most have not attended one of your classes. And I know you're not at Yoga Joint anymore. That's where I attended one of your classes, but it was like popular classes, and
Yeah.
I don't know how many people fit in those rooms, but
70.
So yeah, it's a packed room, hot room. All eyes on, everyone's waiting for the next instruction. Especially I took a Fit 45 class with you where really everyone's like tuned into every time you breathe and waiting for you to save them.
Yes.
And help them move on. So it is intense. Like kind of like this. Do you think you have that feeling even now?
Yes.
Like
I was nervous before, but now I'm like, okay, I can do this. I just feel it's weird. I feel most like myself when I know that I'm presenting it to like an audience. I don't want to misrepresent myself. So I feel like it's easier for me to misrepresent myself in a conversation with one person where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how they want me to be or how I should perform. But when I know that it's like a stage, I'm like, oh, I know who I am and I know what I believe in and how to speak and how I feel and all of that. I really feel validated like in front of an audience for sure. I've never put that together.
When did you stop dancing competitively?
I stopped.
I'm assuming you still dance at least for fun sometimes.
I dance for sure, like at the club. Yeah, I'm always dancing, to be honest. I love to dance. But no, I don't really dance the way that I used to anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of shifted to yoga and Pilates. But when did I stop dancing competitively? In high school. I tried out for the collegiate dance team, didn't make it. Went to college for 3 years. Tried out for the Heat my junior year. Wasn't expecting to get very far at all. Made it all the way. Talk about trauma. Made it all the way where I was not expecting to go. Through a whole week of boot camp, my family is watching at that final audition. It was like a bachelor ceremony with roses. It was cut from like 30 to 26. Like I think 4 of us didn't get the rose. It was really traumatic and heartbreaking. And that was like my last time truly dancing. And it's interesting to bring that up because that's, I think, like a huge thing in people is whatever you grew up doing, however you identified yourself growing up, there's one day that you no longer do it and you no longer have that part of your identity. And more oftentimes than not, the trauma aspect of it is because it was like movement. You were moving your body, you were identifying yourself like, through movement or through community or through, the collective mindset of whatever it was, winning, losing, fighting for it, practice, and that whole ritualistic aspect of life as you're growing up, if you participate in like sports or anything, violin, anything, you put that craft down one day and you never go back. And then you wonder why 5 years later you're sitting at your cubicle and you're like, I feel so unfulfilled. I feel so not like myself. I don't know who I am. And it's because one day you just put down something that was part of your life every day since you can remember. And that's oftentimes what brings people to yoga.
So okay, so why and how does yoga, in your eyes, help with that void that I think most people have? I have it too, because for most people, the odds are that they're not, connected to that, joy and community and all those positive feelings that they used to get from whatever it is they used to do, right? Even if it's hanging out with your friends in the
Yeah,
park every day, you can't do that anymore
exactly.
for hours every day. So what do you think yoga does? Because I have my theories.
Yoga, we're lucky that it's westernized and that it's kind of celebrated as this, mind, body, spirit ability to connect us to movement. I think is like people are like, okay, I don't feel like going to the gym. That doesn't work for me. I don't. Whatever it is, if you feel stagnant, yoga feels like kind of like an approachable methodology of movement because you're like, oh, it's just stretching, and like I can just tune out all of the spiritual shit and just at least I can stretch in a hot room.
First bad word.
No, it was like the third one. You missed one. Yeah, so yoga, I think it's westernized and it's really trendy right
Yeah.
now, which is a beautiful thing because I think the world really needs yoga. And to me, yoga is just like time with yourself. You can practice any type of yoga, but I really like to instill into my students like yoga is what we call it, but at the end of the day, yoga is about self-remembrance. Smarana is the Sanskrit word, and that's my deepest connection to yoga is smarana, which is self-remembrance. It's not self-improvement. You're not trying to make yourself better. You're trying to remember who you are. You're trying to go back to that version of you playing in the park, that version of you playing kickball, that version of you in your 4th ballet class ever, that childlike curiosity to movement, to understanding, how you respond to a certain physical movement. And then I think in adulthood, when you practice yoga, you accidentally uncover how those movements or those places that you are in the mind, how they kind of reflect who you are as an adult. So habitual places that you go to in the mind, like for example, there's a lot of parallels between how you speak to yourself in a yoga class and how you speak to yourself outside. But you're not really tuned in to how you speak to yourself in your day-to-day life because it's just all that you know. But when you're in yoga and I tell you, to sweep your right leg to the sky and you're like, oh my God, I suck. My hamstrings or my hip flexors are so tight and I suck at yoga and I should have never come and blah, blah. You find yourself spiraling and it's like, yo, you've literally never done that before. Like, it's okay that you've never done that. Give yourself permission to learn and give yourself permission to try something new without immediately passing judgment and immediately speaking so many negative things into your space. You're trying something new, you're moving through something you've never done before, but you recognize that, especially when you have a teacher. I'm always going to remind you of that. Like, I can kind of feel when people in the room are like, oh, I suck at this and blah, blah, blah. I can just feel it. And I'm like, hey, relax. It's just yoga, like how do you speak to yourself on the mat is going to directly correlate to how you speak to yourself outside, and you're not gaining anything from speaking to yourself that way. So take it as a learning experience. Use your mat as a mirror. How you treat yourself is going to directly correlate to the way that you feel. So whether you can get your hands to touch your toes or not is not what's going to make a transformative experience for you today in yoga. It's recognizing that you are speaking down to yourself for not being able to do something that maybe you've never done before.
So I'm definitely a victim of that. It's difficult to get the competition. I mean, I'm competing
Yes.
with myself in yoga because it's not only also the cool videos that you make and advanced yogis make sets kind of a standard of what a yogi should look like, how open their hips are in certain movements. So that creates some level of competition because. Not that, one that's only been doing it for 2 months, 2 years should be there, but you want to feel improvement. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but that's like a little demon that's within me. So I'm
Yes.
assuming it's in many other people. Just like when you go to the gym, you want to see results or some progress. But what I learned from it, things that I can say that I have, now understood on my journey with yoga is two interesting things. One is every time I take a break from yoga, even if it's a few days, a couple weeks, whatever it is, every time I come back, I feel improvement, which I think is always interesting because I'm always in the mindset where I have to do this every day to get better. But actually, when I take a break and then I do my even downward dog, I feel like, oh, I'm way better at this than
Are
I
there
was
any
last week.
parallels of that in other aspects of your life?
I don't know, are there?
Like, do you ever feel like
I
you
not
don't give
think-
yourself a break, and then when you do, you come back better, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta be consistent. And then you give yourself a little break, you create a little space between you and that thing, and you come back and you're like,
Probably. I just probably don't take breaks to realize those things. But with yoga, I do take breaks. Also, the breaks I take with yoga, by the way, are not planned breaks. It's
Right.
just sometimes it's laziness, sometimes it's whatever.
scheduling, yeah, things get in the way,
exactly.
for sure.
But every time I do get back to it, which I always do, I feel improvement, which is interesting. So now you give me food for thought
Yeah.
for the rest of my life.
Those are the types of
Yeah.
parallels that I mean that the practice can really, evoke is like, oh, wait, can I create a parallel? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're like, no, but sometimes you're like, oh, that's the probing question now could I benefit from more breaks in other aspects of my life? Do I, practice or do things consistently thinking that I'm doing something good for myself? And then in reality, if I was to create a little bit of space, it doesn't have to be a break. It could just be space, energetic space between you and that thing. You could come back stronger, more aligned, more happy to be there.
Which conceptually, I completely, also through this example that I gave you in yoga, I see, it requires so much like reversing things that you've motivated yourself and aimed towards, and ambition and doubt and fear and all these things. It's very difficult to take space, take a break like I do from yoga for a few days, a couple weeks, whatever. So that's one.
What was the second one?
The second one is that I'm always making improvements in yoga, and the moments of improvement are always unpredictable. It's always, and I've spoken about this before briefly, but like a aha moment
I love those.
where it's like whatever, a headstand seems literally impossible, and then you're doing the same thing today that I did 3 days ago, but it just kind of clicked. And that happens continuously, even with basic movements or different alignments, even things like that seem easy from the side, but internally you kind of feel like you're out of place, doesn't make sense. What is the teacher talking about? Suddenly clicks, like the teacher says it one class, doesn't make sense at all, completely doubting the instructor and, her level of competency. And then like 3 months later, that moment clicks.
Yes.
That makes sense from 3 months ago in the workshop.
Yes.
So I find that super interesting as a number 2. Number 3 that I'm remembering now, that I also I'm still figuring out myself, and I think it's going to be a lifelong figuring out. But it's that yoga, because of the practice, it allows you to expand your knowledge in terms of like the width of your knowledge when it comes to yoga. See if you understand me. If not, I'll try and explain. But also the depth of it at the same time. So like, let's
Tell me
say
what you mean.
when I used to be a soccer player. So when you're on the soccer pitch, it's the wide part, because you're improving your technique and all these different things you're improving your competitiveness, you're winning, your timing, all these things. But you don't have the luxury to dive deep because it's a competition. You can't get caught with your pants down.
Right.
But in yoga, you can get caught with your pants down because it's with yourself, right? You're basically opening up your own vulnerabilities and things like that to yourself, no one else. Maybe the instructor can feel your energy a little bit, but but it's like a journey with yourself. So you have the luxury to improve the width of your knowledge, like the techniques, your aha moments, all those things, but also your depth and inside your soul, which seems like a probably a never-ending, right? Hole or heaven, or
Right.
however we want to
Right.
position it. But yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
Yes.
do you feel that
I
also
love the way you
as part of
explained it.
your journey? And
Yes.
do you continuously, consciously also try and explore the depth of whatever that means?
Yes.
The yoga part?
Yes. I think a deeper understanding of self is the greatest gift that yoga can give you. So as the practice expands and you feel a little bit, as far as the width, you feel a little bit more grounded in your scope of understanding of like more like the surface level aspects of yoga, like alignment and breathing and anatomy and Sanskrit and the ability to do certain postures. As that widens, I do think it should. If you're practicing yoga in the way,
Yeah.
not like doing it right, but more so like in the greatest way to benefit you, I think it's like a spectrum. You're growing wide, but also growing deep, and one hand shakes the other. Like one class you'll really widening your understanding, and you're having aha moments physically, and then the next class you're kind of autopiloting as far as expansion this way, but you're like really in the depths of understanding who you are, or kind of like the darkness that exists within you. I like to say that yoga is the practice of finding and creating light, but it's utilizing that light to crawl into the darker, deeper spaces of who you are without fear. It's knowing you have that light. You can shine that light and into that little space in who you are, and you can just acknowledge and recognize and almost like forgive those parts of yourself. Yoga is kind of like I like to explain yoga as life is a storage unit. Your body is a storage unit, and it's storing all of your memories, all of your experiences, anything you've ever felt, struggle, happiness, laughter, loss, all of that. And it's like boxes inside of your storage unit. So all of your memories, all of your experiences are stored in the body. And most of us are, especially as we get older, you're just kind of like opening up that storage door, shoving a box in and closing it, because you're like, oh my God, if I leave it open one more second, all the boxes will start coming out, and I'll have to really look at myself as all of me. Where yoga gives you the power and kind of the self-reliance and self-assuredness to slowly open that door. You have your little light, your little lantern. You crawl into the back of the storage unit to a box that you've been avoiding. It's covered in dust and cobwebs, and it feels so scary and so dark. And you crawl and you open that box. You have the strength. You're equipped. You're better equipped to open that box, because you're like, I know who I am. I know how to handle this. Maybe. You open the box, you look at what's inside, you acknowledge what's inside, you recognize what's inside, and then you have the power to make a decision. Do I compartmentalize this differently? Can I put both of these boxes in one? Does it have to take up as much space? Can I let this go and hold on to this that I know serves me? Then you close up the box, you label it. That is a piece of who you are. And that understanding, that knowing that you can go to that dark space, that memory, that struggle, whatever it was, you are equipped to handle it. You can look at it, you can acknowledge it, you don't have to avoid it. You can label it and know that it's a part of you, and forgive yourself of that and let it go, put it back in the storage unit. That to me is yoga. It's that process of understanding, going into the depths and reallocating the power, because without you being able to know what it is in that corner, it's just taking up space, and oftentimes you think it's way worse than it is. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, this happened, or yes, I am this way, or they were this way towards me, but I'm okay now. And that feeling of being okay is what brings people to come back to the mat and to come back to the depth of the practice, from my understanding.
Is that everything you just described very nicely? Is that the spiritual part of yoga? Because, before you mentioned like yoga is accessible because people think that it's just stretching. I can show up. I don't have to, abide by the, quoting you now, spiritual shit or spiritual bullshit. And it's you quoting them. But people do think that, I did too. Showing up for yoga classes, I didn't know how spiritual I was going to get, in terms of the instructor guiding me through some I didn't know, spiritual stuff. I didn't even know what that meant, even to myself. I think I always had a sense of spirituality internally, just like the way you just described things. But I think even the word spirituality we associate with sound bowls and gods and all these things, which doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But that's how I also imagined it. But I thought I could show up and it would help my flexibility,
Right.
it would help my strength, my range of motion, and that's it. And I can put all that stuff aside. But is that it? Like diving into this, who you are?
That's it. It happens accidentally. I always say it doesn't matter what brings you to your yoga class. It could be like a hot girl you met on Tinder that's like, go to this yoga class with me, and you have like the shallowest reason to go, and you're like, you're not open to it at all.
Yeah.
But if you find a studio or an instructor that resonates with you, that you're able to kind of peel back those layers that are guarding you from going somewhere you don't want to go, realizing that you're only going in. Like it's not like a cult. We're not like pulling you towards, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not asking for you to, what is the word for
bow?
that? Yeah, but like,
Pray. Like
worship.
Worship.
It's not like worshiping the deities necessarily or your guru or your teacher. It's you. It's self-worship. It's literally giving yourself the time and the love to understand maybe the depth of how far you go. And spirituality isn't spirituality and worship are two different things. Spirituality for me is an understanding of self. It's introspection, it's self-awareness, it's self-reliance, it's trusting who you are and why you are the way that you are. To me is spirituality. I think you're a deeper person when you understand who you are, and you can meet, they say, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And that to me is spirituality. It's not the woo-woo and the granola. It's the depth of who you are, the depth of understanding.
And there's no certain speed in which one has to move or needs to move or even think about that, right? It's not like you're aiming to run 7-minute miles and improve your spirituality at a certain pace. You're
at your own pace.
Every minute you probably spend, just digging into who you are is making progress or is getting deeper into that whole element. Have you been injured before?
Yes.
You mentioned your wrist, right?
Yeah, I broke my wrist. I was already like 30 or 31 years old. I broke my wrist in 3 places. And I had never really been injured before. And it was one of the most challenging times in my life.
From skiing?
No, I was rollerblading, even worse.
Because you mentioned because of the skiing question, you mentioned that you have more respect for the body now and more fear.
Yeah.
So where does the fear element come in?
I don't want to get hurt. Like, I do not want to be injured. I recognize the value in movement so much, but I don't think I respected all of the things that my body could do until I remember I couldn't put my hair in a ponytail. It was like 5 weeks into my injury. I was fine. I'm kind of like a lazy daisy. Like, I'm okay with laying around. I appreciate movement, but I could also like lay around. I'm amazing at laying down. And even in like working in fitness, I was just like, I'm cool. I'm laying down. I'm chilling today. I'm like, I have that skill. And yeah, I broke my wrist, and at first it was okay, and then I was like, oh my God. Like, it's like not being able to do things that you typically can do makes you realize and recognize how important it is to appreciate all of the simple things that your body can do. Like it wasn't that I couldn't do yoga. It wasn't that I couldn't go to the gym. It wasn't any of those things. I couldn't put my hair in a ponytail one day and I snapped. I was like, oh my God, I will never ever take for granted my ability to move my body. There's people that would kill to be able to stand up one more time, to be able to walk in a straight line one more time. Like I need to forever instill in myself and in my students the simplicity of movement and gratitude for the body. That is like so important, so much more important than progressive overload at the gym or getting your handstand or any of that. It's just like appreciation for all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, two working arms and legs, and the ability to breathe and feel things we should be hyper focused on that more than anything else. Just gratitude for the body and all of the magical things that it does for us.
I know, and I showed up today a little bit depressed because I hurt my knee yesterday running, which I've been processing my feelings ever since that moment, and I think I did one podcast, maybe I think it was maybe 30 episodes ago, but where the morning of the podcast, I went for a run and I tweaked my calf muscle, and I walked in the studio limping, and it just depresses me because now I have to take a break. But the knee, so and I always have, because I don't magically get injured when I get injured after I finished my run or when I reached my end point. So I always have a bit of a walk of shame from the moment I stop the run until I get home, which the rush of thoughts, emotion, appreciation, all these different things, as you were describing now, come to your mind, and you're trying to process all these things, and oh my God, I didn't appreciate my medial knee until this moment, but it's a lot, and I think that people are injured, and injured is a spectrum of, it could be aches, it could be restrictions that we just get used to on a regular basis, but that we learn to absorb and live with, and we let the injuries, the discomforts mold the new us, versus kind of asking the body, like you said, emotionally who you are, spiritually who you are, but also physically who you are. So instead of letting the gravity of the world kind of push you and mold you now to the new you, with your neck a bit bent forward, or your posture not great, or now I can't make certain movements with my knee, so I'm walking a bit straighter. We let that mold us. And I think that yoga, this is what I was thinking about in my walk of shame yesterday, was that yoga also allows me to push out and, to stay within the physical realm that I should be in. And I think that people don't see it that way, or we're not taught to approach working out as a whole in that way. We're taught to, work out for certain gains. And I think, you mentioned, the appreciation and the, being able to move and is the goal. So almost like for a lot of people, the status quo is the goal, because life wants to regress us or change us. So I find that, motivational from a physical perspective, putting all the spiritual shit aside. I find that very, inspirational from a yoga perspective to get that, because, when you see, someone like yourself practicing yoga, and then I get, I follow all the cool accounts on Instagram, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. And, and a lot of people, don't have the six packs or the biggest muscles, but it's just amazing, staying true to their physique and their craft. And, it looks like it belongs. The body is acting in a way that it kind of wants to be. Unlike, and I'm sorry if I'm making anyone upset, but when you see a bodybuilder, at least in my eyes,
there's something unnatural about it.
it doesn't look right. And again, if you're doing it for everyone has their own reasons, which is completely blessed.
Respect.
So not judging anyone.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
it's very hard to get that. But it doesn't look to me inspirational from the sense of this is what physically your body wants to be and wants to express itself. But when I see certain yogis practicing, it looks it. And when I practice, when I sometimes you can kind of see yourself in a mirror, even though there's no mirrors around you. So you get a 1 second of that feeling. Even though if someone was probably looking at you, it doesn't look to them, but to you it feels that way.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Which I think is also like a mini stepping stone in that progress of yoga, of almost like seeing yourself in the future performing that beautiful warrior one pose or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Visualization is a really powerful tool. It's imagination is what you call it when you're a little kid, but then in your adulthood, the power of visualization is keeping that imagination skill set, I guess, kind of still going. And that's the ability to one day see yourself in that beautiful warrior too, rather than feeling like you're stuck in where you are, and you are who you are right now, and that's who you'll always be, and your hamstring will always be tight, and you suck at yoga, and blah, 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 blah. It's being able to imagine yourself as you, but a little bit closer to the visuals that appeal to you on Instagram. It's believing that you could get closer to that. And that simply that belief in the practice, it's going to be like a driving force and for you to continue to show up. Another amazing thing is filming yourself. A lot of times the improvements in yoga, they feel really nuanced. So like you can't necessarily feel yourself getting closer to your toes until your fingertips are touching your toes. You're like, I can't touch my toes. I can't touch my toes. I can't touch my toes. I tell my students all the time, video yourself doing yoga, leave it in your phone. 2 months from now, video yourself doing yoga. 11 times out of 10, they're like, oh my God, I'm so much better than I thought. But because they didn't have that tangible, measurable, finger to toe aha moment, they were just like, oh my God, I'm going to yoga all the time and I just suck. And this girl can put her leg behind her head. It's like, that girl has nothing to do with you. And for all you know, that girl is like evil and like has a terrible relationship with everyone in her life and is struggling every single day. But meanwhile, you're showing up every day. The relationships in your life are beautiful. You're finding a deeper understanding for your body. Like, do not worry about what people are doing on Instagram or what people are doing on their mat. They're on their own journey. Yoga is about you. It's healthy, selfish. Learn to have that introspection. Let it be all about you and your journey. And yeah, if you need a video to see that your fingers are getting closer to your toes, then give yourself that. Give yourself a measurable, tangible proof of the hard work that you're doing, because you should know yourself and what you need in order to stick with something. So if you know yoga makes you feel good, but you know that if you don't have a true gauge on getting better at it and you need to know you're getting better at it in order to keep doing it, then take a video of yourself. And I guarantee you 100% of the time, you will be impressed by the growth from 1 month to the next, every time, if you're practicing consistently.
Now you're teaching Yoga-Pilates classes, which is a combination of yoga and Pilates, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So where does that come into play? Pilates.
Pilates is awesome.
For you specifically.
For me specifically.
Like, when did is that always been like together with yoga for you?
No. I was in kind of right before I left Yoga Joint, I was craving more, but I didn't know what that meant. And for me, when I'm in that space where I feel like my head is at the ceiling and I'm like, I want to grow in some direction and I don't know which direction to go in. For me, my favorite thing is to go to like a teacher training. So that's where I found myself. I found a teacher training
for
Pilates in Miami. It was like 2 weekends. It was when I got back from Burning Man. I'm like, oh my God, that's gonna be good for me to get back to back to work after finding myself in the depth.
Yeah,
Let me
speaking of the
widen
depth,
now. Yeah. I'm like, okay, let me like add some tools to my tool belt. And so yeah, and it was honestly, I can truly say it was life-changing for me. It just felt so good to go back to school. And it felt really nice to know that all of my knowledge in yoga really coupled really well with Pilates. I think I have like an inferiority complex when it comes to yoga because I don't look like a typical yogi. I don't talk like a typical yogi. I don't speak like a typical yogi. Oh, I already said that. I don't teach like a typical yogi.
Yeah.
I definitely have my own way. I'm very much one of one, and that, as much as I can boast about it and seem really confident and really like I'm me and that is it, I am what I am sort of thing, at the end of the day, like when I go home, I do feel intimidated, like seeing people speak fluently in Sanskrit and like have so much knowledge of the philosophy of yoga, and it's made me really question like my, like, why do I have this following? Like, am I, it's that what's the word for it? Imposter syndrome. Like, am I enough? Am I really capable of holding space for all these people? Should they come to my class? Like, I question myself all the time, and going to that Pilates training and recognizing like, oh, I know my shit. Like, I know the body and I know movement and I understand the musculature and anatomy and another thing, in that training, I found myself mentoring the teachers a lot. Like, I just had this natural ability to tell people why they will love teaching. Teaching is really intimidating if you've never taught before, and you're going to have imposter syndrome, and you're going to feel like you're never enough and like you don't know enough and somebody else can do more, just like I was saying not to do in class. I do it as a teacher all the time. But I was just like, from the pits of my soul, being like, you will help people, like, and you will feel so good understanding how to create an aha moment for someone, how to instill this love for movement in someone, or you will get someone to pulse their leg for 5 seconds longer than they ever have in their life, and that will be their aha moment for them. It doesn't have to be this, out of body spiritual thing. It can literally be empowering someone. You do not have to drop your leg. Pulse one more fucking time and see what happens. See what's on the other side of who you think you are. Push a little bit further. Do one more rep. And being able to bring people to that moment, it is so fulfilling. And that is what keeps me from, spiraling into like, I'm not enough. Like, I'm like, oh no, wait a minute. Like, that fulfills me. That makes me happy. And I know she's that much stronger. Physically, yes, you like got that little glute pump today, but emotionally, energetically, spiritually, they're like, oh, I am capable of more. And that translates. Like, when you know that you can do one more rep, then you can do, one more aspect in your career that you didn't think. You can make that call. You can ask that question. You can ask for the raise. You're like, what's on the other side of it? Probably a better version of who I already am.
And that is yoga, no?
Yeah, everything's yoga.
That is yoga.
Yeah.
It's also like this book I was telling you about. There was some line there where it's basically saying like that the yoga journey is kind of breaking that, duality facade, that even within yoga, right? We associate yoga with a certain way, a certain being, a certain, person that teaches yoga. But it's not that. And I think maybe that's what also, was drawing to you in that my first workshop with you. And Bianca did build up the expectation that it's going to be the most amazing class. But it is because you do it differently and your way, which I think is, super cool, because I think a lot of the time, and I've been with also instructors who are early on in their instructor journey, who are trying too hard, who are taking themselves too seriously or too seriously, who are trying to be someone else, and we're not all the gurus. We're not all, you're just yourself. And that's probably the best yoga teacher you can be, or
Correct.
Pilates teacher. So Pilates, but now you're doing like a combination.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
sorry.
No, yeah, so that's great. It's like a is it a concoction that you're kind of forming
Yes.
yourself?
Yes. So it exists. Like it's
Yeah.
Yoga-Pilates is definitely new, but like Aloe has it on their app. I looked it up and it's like been trademarked both with an I and with an A. So Yogi-Pilates and Yoga-Pilates is both trademarked. So it's existed. I
Yeah.
think there's a natural, like in the Venn diagram of yoga and Pilates, there's a lot in that center part that they share. And I think they really complement each other. But yes, I'm trying to create my own methodology really and my own fusion of two practices that I love so much, that I've felt such a change in my body. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, yoga changed my body in like my understanding, my appreciation, my love for my body, but I had been dancing my whole life. Like it was very familiar movements, and I didn't it toned my arms, I must say. Okay, fine. But for the most part, yoga didn't really change my body, and then Pilates was like, whoa, I went it felt so similar. It felt so similar to yoga, but it was a little bit more athletic, a little bit more, laser focused on the musculature, not just the stretch or the activation, but like actually strengthening the muscle and feeling like I found something that made such a profound change in me physically. I was like, okay, I want to be able to empower people emotionally, empower people physically, bring people to like all of the amazing health and wellness benefits of yoga, but then also like kick their ass a little bit and give them Pilates, like give them the resilience and the grit that's required to get yourself through 10 reps. Yoga is a little bit more nuanced. It's like, oh, you don't want to go as deep in your warrior one. I can tell you, sit 2 inches deeper all I want, but you're like, this is kind of where I'm at today. 10 reps is 10 reps, and there's a certain level of resilience that's required that isn't really required in yoga. But the fusion of meeting people where they are and being like, this is your practice, like this is always going to be wrapped up in a blanket of love and yoga, but do it. Like, do the reps, do the movement. Yes, you absolutely can try it, give yourself permission to try something new. And yeah, I want to create my own fusion that people feel like they got the workout that they wanted, but they also got the work in that they wanted as well. And that to me is Yogi-Pilates. It's all of the best aspects of both combined into one beautiful
You gonna
little
get
baby.
any men showing
Yeah.
up for the Yoga-Pilates?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. My boyfriend loves it. He literally, we did it twice, and he's like my biggest promoter. And he was like, it literally gave me abs, like in twice. I'm like, no, it didn't. Stop false advertising for Pilates. Like, no, it didn't. I mean, it's that core activation is unmatched. Like,
Yeah.
core work in
And it's
Pilates.
definitely like creates more accessible to our Western culture thinking. Like
Yes.
even just having the reps, and
Yes.
it like opens the door and people can jump in and feel more comfortable, right?
Yeah, for
it makes
sure.
more sense to do 10 reps than breathe.
Yeah. And like open the inguinal canal. Like you're like, what? Like I'm dying.
Exactly. So that's awesome. I want to ask you to finish up, to wrap things up. I want to ask you a question that we ask every guest on the podcast. Personally or professionally, what is something that you have, fundamentally changed your mind on? And I'm asking it from the perspective of, trying to demonstrate how, as I mentioned before, to eliminate this facade of duality that we're all succumbed into, from day one that we've been alive, at least in our time, So what is something?
I have fundamentally changed my mind on changing my mind. I've given myself permission to learn more and change. I could be, I used to be, I think, more black and white in who I was. I'm like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Or, this is a warrior too, take it or leave it from my one training, And I think I've really now, I'm like, oh my God, changing your mind is amazing. Changing your mind based on what you've learned and what you've experienced and who you are now, or how your body is now, or how your relationships are now. I think it's so powerful, giving yourself permission to change. Change your mind, change your understanding, change your perspective. Yeah, I think that's the most fundamental thing that I've changed.
So you're consciously more open-minded to changing your mind.
Yes.
And also not defining yourself as this thing, this person, and evolving with it. But do you find yourself consciously trying to understand, okay, what am I today? What am I today? And then maybe that will change? Or are you consciously not even trying to, pinpoint
I
on
think
what
I do. I think I do try to understand myself. Now that you ask me, yeah, I think I do try to understand myself day to day. I mean, I had to go from being, a yoga teacher to now yoga and Pilates. Like, that was a change for me that I was intimidating. I'm like, oh my God, but I've always been yoga. Like, no one will ever respect my Pilates or blah, 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 whatever. All of the, that like inner saboteur language that comes naturally. And wait, tell me your question again.
just whether you like consciously,
Oh,
think and pinpoint of where you are today, and then give yourself permission to not be that forever, or because I can see it going two ways, or simply allowing yourself not to even think, who is Vanessa today?
I think I do always kind of check in with who I am, and I'm in a stage in my life with immense growth, and I think growth for me, the best way for me to grow is growing like on a spectrum, kind of growing in both directions. But sometimes you grow in one direction first, and then you have to kind of turn around and pick up those parts of you or those versions of you. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say I grow in how I expect to be treated, let's say. And I'm like, okay, I'm growing in that. I'm reading books and I'm treating myself that way in order, to attract and magnetize that sort of treatment to myself. But then I recognize that people in my life I really care about, or, aspects of my life I really care about, like it could be like going out and drinking, or it can be a certain person in my life that treated me a certain way that I didn't like. So I grow forward and I kind of leave it in the dust, but then I feel myself yearning or longing for going out and having a drink or seeing that person and hanging out. But I now have this growth with me, and I can like turn backwards and be like, okay, I want to bring this with me. So how can I grow to understand where they are, or how can I better, prepare myself or think of going out and having that drink that will not hinder my growth and also not force me to kind of abandon old parts of myself. So it's like I'm
Organizing your storage unit.
yes.
I wanted to ask you, I forgot before about the, because I think even in the class you did some, the sound bowls.
Yeah.
So what, for you, why is that important, and why do you bring that into play if you still do?
I still do. I think it really helps meditation and shavasana. So meditation, we often think of it as clearing of the mind, but meditation by definition is single pointed focus. So I like to bring people to focus on the breath, but the sound bowl, the frequency of the sound bowl kind of brings you into this space where it's a little bit easier for you to tap into the breath, because there's like this vibrating frequency that allows you to kind of, focus on that one thing, and that's the breath. It kind of silences the chatter around you. It's like you hear that vibrating, you hear that hum. It already feels kind of relaxing and grounding, and I think it just has, that a natural calming effect on the body and the mind. People love it.
Vanessa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will show up to a Yoga-Pilates class.
Yes. Humbled. You will be humbled, my guy.
I am excited. So please tell the listeners where they can, A, if they're in South Florida, sign up to your classes, and B, online, find your stuff, find you, learn about you, follow you, etc.
Follow me. My most active platform and really my only platform is Instagram. It is Yogithot, Yogith0T.
A controversial name.
Yeah. We'll touch on that next time I'm here. And where to find me to come take class? I am on the Mind Body app. Type in Yogithot LLC and you'll find me.
Vanessa, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.